Right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting on the 10th of June, the first one of the municipal year, and to our welcome to our new Cabinet members as well. First off, well, I won't introduce Cabinet members at this moment because it is actually an item on the agenda, so I'll do that in a moment. Oh, and the first item is membership of the Cabinet. Sorry. So we have got Councillor Jane, Councillor Jane Ryler, Councillor Vic Kendrick, Councillor Amanda Pinnock, Councillor Nosheen Dad, Councillor Tyler Hawkins, and Councillor Beverly Addy, along with Councillor Moses Crook and myself, Councillor Carol Patterson, leader of the Council and the Cabinet. So welcome everybody. We have got apologies from Councillor Turner. So minutes of the previous meeting, to approve the minutes of the meeting held of the Cabinet held on the 6th of May. Are people happy to approve those? Can I see a show of hands? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any interest that anyone needs to declare? No, everyone's shaking heads. Thank you. And then admission of the public. This meeting is being held in public. However, there is one item, the last item, which has got some exempt information where I'll return to that when we get to that item, but we may need to hold part of that item in private if needs be. Deputations, item 5, deputations and petitions. We have none. Questions, item 6, questions by members of the public. We have no members of the public present. So we're now on to item 7, which is questions by elected members. I have got 4 members who have indicated that they wish to speak. I won't say forever hold your peace or anything, but we've got half an hour for this item, so I will assume, hopefully, that it's just the four questions, and we will be able to. You've got 2 questions, right? You've got a few, right? Well, I will try, and I would like to keep it to half an hour. But the first person I've got on the list is Joe Lawson. So, Joe, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Chair. If I can just congratulate Councillor Tyler Hawkins for becoming the Kirklees wasteman, but I believe he dodged a bullet, and environment is with Councillor Pinnock, who should have been in receipt of an email from myself showing her what we as ward councillors have done in our ward. In the last year, I've come to Cabinet and I've raised fly tipping, and most of the time I've got a reply of Kirklees has a 0 tolerance towards fly tipping. But what does this 0 tolerance actually look like? We've actually had in the last year, there was over 10,000 reported incidents of fly tipping, and less than 1% resulted in any punishment towards the actual fly tipping. Is about 4 weeks ago, we were told that there was over 1,000 reported fly tipping incidents across the whole of Kirklees. We were also told that there were 2 vans. We've also got, along with this 0 tolerance thing, we have unfortunately only got 2 enforcement officers who actually work extremely hard, but they are obviously under a lot of pressure. I also recently investigated whether or not we could use our ward budget to actually buy a CCTV camera. We were actually told that unfortunately we wouldn't be able to. There would be nobody who would be able to collect the data or even look at the data, but never mind, we're going to have some signs. So my question is, how many CCTV cameras does Kirklees council have, and where are they at this present moment in time?
Councillor Pinnock, can you respond to that, please?
Yeah. Councillor Lawson, thank you for the question. It's an important question. It's one that I accept you've raised a number of times in relation to fly tipping, particularly in your ward. And quite recently I received an email from your colleague about a proposal to look at the community funding CCTV and the local authority managing the footage, but obviously complying with GDPR. So that's something that we are looking into at the moment. I can't really respond to whether it's something we'll be in a position to do, because it's more around the GDPR and the strict regulations around that. That really needs to be looked at before the council can even indicate that's something that they're able to do going forward. In respect of your question about zero tolerance, I think it's sort of self-explanatory. You know, the council do not tolerate fly tipping, and we are working hard to address that. I can't tell you at the moment how many CCTV vans we have. That's something I can get back to you about. I understand there are 2. There may be an opportunity to purchase some more. That's a conversation I need to have with the senior director about how we can move forward with that. You've made a good point about the prosecution situation, and it is difficult to prosecute, and we need to really improve on the opportunity to do that, but much depends on the strength of the evidence that we have. If we don't know who the perpetrators are, it's extremely difficult to punish individuals who fly tip. So there is, what I would do is ask if anyone is aware of fly tipping or aware of people who are fly tipping. It's really important that you report that to the council so that we can take steps to address it. I think it's a community thing. These things are happening under the cover of darkness or nighttime, whatever the situation is, but without that information, we'll struggle to find the perpetrators and prosecute the perpetrators, because that's what we want to do, because we have a zero tolerance of fly tipping. I am extremely new to the role, as you know. As you said, my friend has dodged the bullet. I've got the bullet. So in answer to your question, I'll provide you with some more information. Thank you.
Have you a supplementary, Councillor Lawson?
Thank you. We have had to push within our residents to actually get them to actually report things. As soon as anybody tells me whether or not is that they've seen somebody fly tipping, my first thing to them is, are you willing to make a statement? People are obviously reluctant to make a statement if it's your neighbour and you've got to live next door to them. You can understand that. But in the last, I think, 6 weeks, we've had 4 people come forward in the ward who've actually been willing to actually report in fly tipping. But now it is a time where we actually need to gather more evidence, because as you rightly say, most of the fly tipping is done at the dead of night, and it is only purely by chance that people are actually seeing them. And one of the things is we need more CCTV cameras.
Have you got... Oh, was that the question there, Councillor Lawson?
Yes.
Councillor Scott, you're next. Sorry?
Will I answer the question?
No.
It was sort of a rhetorical question, but I can answer it.
Just one at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. My question was actually to Councillor Turner, and I note he's not here today, but what I'll do is I'll still read it out, and obviously, as a leader, maybe you'll answer it, or Moses, you may be able to answer this. Can the Cabinet confirm exactly when officers and Cabinet members first become aware of the 13 group considered and the estate building scheme unviable, when they considered it unviable, or were intending to withdraw from this? I'm sorry, I should have said this was about the state buildings.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. As you pointed out, Councillor Turner is not here today to answer specific questions around that, although I am aware that a very positive piece of work was done with 13 Group around the estate building and viability for use as social housing and affordable housing. They withdrew from that process for understandable reasons, and we'll get the details back to you by email if that's okay. Thanks.
Supplementary, Councillor Scott.
My supplementary on that question, because otherwise I've got some other questions, but I'll come back onto that in a minute. If the council knew it was weeks ago, because you've obviously just stated that, you know, you worked around it and it was understandable, why was this not reported or reflected in the report today?
I can't answer that because it's not in my cabinet portfolio, but you know, I think there is a real positive future for the estate building as part of our regeneration of the town at large, and I'm very positive about the future for that building, and that positive future is partly as a response to the work that's been done, including with 13 Group, and also in terms of the investment in the building through various different funds, internal and external. So it's part of a picture which will lead us to a place where that building is brought back into use to benefit all of the people of Kirklees and to benefit the town as well. So, thanks.
Councillor Moore, you have a question.
Thank you. My question is about the impact of the closure of Nab Lane waste site has on the Dewsbury site. So the closure of Nab Lane waste site has led to significant ripple effects at the Dewsbury site. The Dewsbury site has seen an influx of new users, leading to longer queues and waiting times. This has also led to a higher operational strain on staff and infrastructure. This has caused significant inconvenience for local residents who now have to travel further, which has environmental consequences. In addition, people become frustrated by delays or being indirectly denied access because of long queues, some being in excess of 1 hour that I personally experienced. In short, local residents have lost trust in Kirklees waste management services. This has caused operational strain, with workers saying they're inundated and now at breaking point. We've also seen a large increase in fly tipping in Dewsbury East since the closure of Nab Lane, many calling it a fly tipper's charter. So my first question is, what impact assessment has been carried out to evaluate the increased pressure on the Dewsbury site since the Nab Lane closure? This includes the impact the closure of a section of Thornhill Road has had to facilitate the Trans-Pennine route upgrade. If no assessment, why not? Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins, would you respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Lead, and thank you, Councillor Moore, for your question as well. I believe the impact assessment was included in the paper that came to Cabinet last year. I'll go back and double-check that and refer back to it in an email with you, if that's okay. I know we are aware of the issues that there have been in the queue times, in particular, to our tips across the borough as well. There have been some changes in layouts which have been trialled at the, I think it's the Meltham tip where they've been trialled, the changes of the layouts. That does seem to have had a positive impact, and we'll be looking to roll that out, working with our partner sewers across the board to make sure that we are addressing the issues that we are clearly having at our waste and recycle centres.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor Moore?
Yeah, I suppose it's around, can the Dewsbury Recycling Centre currently cope with the extra demand without compromising service quality or safety? And what evidence do we have?
Councillor Hawkins?
Yeah, I will say, as I say, when we took the decision at Cabinet, we were and still are confident that all of our sites can handle the new operation. Something that will be coming to the next Cabinet meeting, which will also inform this going forward, is a revision to the waste strategy, which will improve our recycling rates, bring our collections in line with some of our neighbours, and also bring back some of the things many councillors and residents have been asking about, whilst also addressing some of those issues that we have been having with capacity at our tips, as well as things like bottle banks as well across the district. But I won't preempt that too much. That's going to be coming to the next Environment and Climate Change Scrutiny Panel, which will air there, and then it will be brought to this Cabinet next month.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Cooper, you have a question.
So in November last year, this council passed a motion And in that motion, it said that we ask that Kirklees Council, where at all lawful and practical, to avoid purchases of goods from Israeli companies illegally occupying the aforementioned Palestinian territories. It went on to say that this council commits to conducting a thorough review of its procurement practices to ensure that goods and consumables sourced from companies directly or indirectly involved in the conflict are not used. Have we got an answer to this yet?
I will answer that one for you. Councillor Cooper, yes, we have an answer, and it'll be going as arranged or agreed to the next Corporate Governance and Audit Committee, which is 20th next week. So the papers will be published this Friday, and you will have your answer there. Thank you. Your supplementary.
Yeah, obviously I'm pleased that we're finally going to get a response after 7 months. Is it possible for you to give us some sort of indication as to the impact of that now and what action the council will actually take?
Well, I think I'll have to leave that to Corporate Governance and Audit, because it was actually agreed that Corporate Governance and Audit would deal with the substance of that motion. There has been the review as requested. The result of that review is going to Corporate Governance and Audit, and it's up to Corporate Governance and Audit to decide how they wish to respond to what's in that paper. Then that can then be forwarded to full council, of course, if Corporate Governance and Audit wish to do so. But I can't preempt what they might say.
Got a few actually, Carol, to be fair, and obviously again it's to Councillor Turner and he's not here, but if you give me the floor I'll ask them, and he can respond accordingly unless you are able to take that. So the next one is about the estate buildings again. The report confirms that no funds were allocated for security or maintenance. If the council now plans to use reserves, why wasn't it forecasted in the budget? And what is the financial impact for 25-26 budgets if reserves are used? What services could and will be affected by this unplanned spend?
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I'm not aware that any reserves are being used in this process. I'm aware that we've sought funding externally and internally in the past to do work to ensure that the building remains secure and watertight, and to, future-proof it and enable a partnership approach to deliver housing through that building in the future. I'm also aware that we received some funding from an external body to do some further enablement works recently, but that was external funding, not from council reserves as far as I'm aware. And to reiterate, it's not my cabinet area, so I'm not across the detail to the same extent that Councillor Turner is. Do you want to come in then?
Actually, to what you've said, it's external funding that we've utilised, and we haven't planned, obviously, to spend the council's money moving forward, because there's a decision before you today. If we have to, then we'll bring something back in due course.
Thank you. Have your supplementary, Councillor Scott.
It does, and that falls in nicely with what I was going to ask. So the developers are now gone, which it's been established. So how will Cabinet avoid triggering government clawback of the 1.25 million brownfield land release fund grant? So have we got the insurances that money will not be clawed back?
I do apologise, I tried to press the button. Thank you, Councillor Scott. So obviously built into funding awards such as the 1.25 million that you referenced, there is a time frame for using that money, and there are certain clawback clauses. I don't anticipate that those clawback clauses would be triggered. I understand that the timetable that we're working to would be within that time frame, and so there should be no risk to council money in that context. I think it's very unlikely that clawback would be triggered in that circumstance either. If we're meaningfully in a process to try and bring the building back into commission for the benefit of the broader community in Kirklees and to meet our housing targets, it would seem perverse for that body to want to seek to claw back that funding. But I take your point. There is technically a risk. I don't think that at the moment that's a very real threat to the process.
Well, no, Councillor Cooper has a second question.
So tomorrow is the closing date for councils to submit their responses to the local government associations looking at a statutory duty for councils on climate change. I just wondered whether Kirklees Council will be submitting a response.
Councillor Hawkins, can you respond, please?
Indeed, I can. Thank you, Councillor Cooper, for the question. And on a broader note, very much looking forward to working with you in your role as the Chair of the Environment and Climate Change Scrutiny Panel on issues like climate change, something I know means a great deal to both of us. I forgot as well in my previous question, I would like to thank Councillor Lawson for her congratulations as well. I've never been called a waste man before, and the last time I heard that was in the playgrounds of Rastrick High School, which were very happy memories for me there. My wife did say being the cabinet member for waste does sound like a rubbish job, but looking forward to proving her wrong there and sharing with you all some exciting developments in the world of waste. But back to your question, Councillor Cooper. I'm unsure if we have contributed, but we'll find out and revert back to you ASAP on that. As you know, we declared a climate emergency in 2019 and are continuing to strive towards our goals outlined in the Environment Strategy and the Climate Action Plan. I think I can share that last year, once again, we were awarded the A grade, the highest grade a local authority can receive by the Carbon Disclosure Project. As I understand, the consultation going on at the moment relates to the statutory framework, which would enable us as a local authority to take more action on the climate emergency. This is something I would very much welcome, and if we haven't made a contribution yet, I will certainly do my level best to get something in by before the closure tomorrow.
Supplementary, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, well, I hope we do respond because, as you say, having a statutory duty to act on climate change would be helpful to councils and hopefully government would provide us with the support that we would need to deliver that. So that's important. If you're having difficulty getting a response in on time, I've got some prepared responses to the consultation which the council can use. So I'll be more than happy to provide those for you. I've got the form, so if you want me to send it on behalf of the council, I'm more than willing to do that.
Councillor Dawson, were you indicating you had a second question?
Oh, am I right to respond?
And sorry, has Councillor Moore got a second question as well? Yeah, well, I will take, because Councillor Lawson came first, I will take the second question from Councillor Lawson, the second question from yourself, Councillor Moore, before I take any third questions, because we are running out of that half hour. But Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the new proposal where we will actually have mobile traffic enforcement. I think it's actually a splendid idea. Unfortunately, the residents of Crossland Moor around the post office and up there would rather that the parking issues were actually dealt with and actually enforced. Can you just clarify for me that these mobile traffic wardens will be new recruits and not taken out of the parking enforcement team?
Thank you, Councillor Lawson, for the opportunity to mention the moving traffic violation powers that we've applied to the Department for Transport to take on as a council. Just to clarify, this is an enforcement capacity. It's not related to individual enforcement officers. It's to do with the powers that we can use to enforce against moving vehicle violations. So, for example, that would be when people are stationary in a box junction or parked in a bus lane or something like that. So it's about who can issue a fixed penalty notice in those circumstances and who has the powers to enforce. So at the moment, we've just put an application into the Department for Transport. I'm hopeful that application will be successful, and then we'll move into implementation, and I think we will bring benefit to many of our residents through that. Obviously, because it's moving vehicle violations, it will probably be through cameras, so it won't necessarily involve officers on the street. It'll involve camera enforcement, but that detail is yet to be determined. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say that all councillors will receive a briefing email in the very near future on this application. There was a very short time frame involved here, and it was important we met the deadline for the opportunity to apply for these powers through the DFT understanding as part of the West Yorkshire region that partners were doing this and it was proving to be effective in terms of bringing benefit to our residents. So you will receive a briefing in the very near future.
Supplementary, Councillor Lawson.
Thank you for the clarification. I received a call just before I came into the meeting from one of my residents who was taking great umbrage about the fact that there was still parked cars on the zebra crossing as they were speaking, and why on earth were we moving people? That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Councillor Moore. Sorry.
Thank you. My question is about burial provision in Dewsbury. And since the discussion with elected members, the bereavement forum over the last 12 months, and the motion submitted by Community Alliance on the lack of burial provision, in particular for Dewsbury, which was submitted and approved in February 25, my question is, have any new sites yet been identified for Dewsbury since these discussions over 12 months ago, and not including the potential extension of the Hetman White site? Thank you.
Sorry. I will answer that, Councillor Moore. And as far as there are plenty of sites that are being looked at currently, there are several quite good potential opportunities, but there is nothing concrete at the moment. Thank you. Supplementary?
As nothing has yet been identified, what is your plan to utilise the £500,000 allocated, and will it remain for use in the Dewsbury area?
As I've said several times before, it's always been identified, it's still there, it's still being used. It's being used to help identify those in terms of investigations. It will be used in Dewsbury.
Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, my question again was to Councillor Turner, and obviously, as we said before, he's not here today. It's on the Kingsgate Centre. We now know that Kingsgate Centre is being marketed for sale, with a 57-bed hotel and 4 restaurants being advertised. Why is none of this mentioned in the public loan report, and how can public assess the value for money when vital information is missing?
Councillor Crook?
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I'm not quite sure why the public would need to assess value for money as part of the sale of the Kingsgate Centre, which is something which, as I understand, is a private sale and not something the council is involved in. The paper here today on the agenda is to do with an extension of the time frame for a relatively small loan that was made to the developers to help facilitate as part of our broader regeneration ambition for Huddersfield. And I don't think there's any risk to the council in terms of repayment of that loan through any sale process that may or may not be underway. You know, it's outside of my remit, that bit.
Supplementary, Councillor Scott?
Comes on nicely to that. So the reason why I asked, and you did talk about the public, why it be of interest, because it's public monies. What guarantees are in place to ensure that the full 7 million is repaid, especially if the ownership changes?
I'm not sure I recognise the figures, so I think that there is a considerably smaller loan from the council, but would you like to come in on that, David?
Oh, he knows.
In the region of £7 million, and it covers the redevelopment costs of the 110,000 square feet of space that the former House of Fraser occupied. So that's, and as is detailed in the paper that's coming to Cabinet today, that was in order to deal with the fit out and getting the tenants in, which is Light, Huddersfield, who have now opened a cinema and have opened the family entertainment. The point of the question is around, well, what guarantees do the council have? As is set out in the paper, the council has the first charge on the property, which is because we are the freeholder of the Kingsgate Centre. The onward sale of the property is important, because the council, that's how the council gets its money back ultimately, and what the loan is intended to, the extension of the loan is intended to do is allow for an orderly sale of the property so the council can redeem its money, and we have a successful Kingsgate Centre as well.
Thanks very much for the clarification, David. So I didn't have the number
There's
of the
a lot
loan
more.
in place, but I am aware that we had first charge on the property, so the return of that money is safeguarded in the future.
Councillor Lawson, and this will be the last question. Cooper.
Hi, really welcome the Council's action under moving traffic enforcement for action in Armitage Bridge and also in Flockton, where we got weight restrictions that are regularly flouted by heavy goods vehicles. This will involve the use of automatic number plate recognition cameras, I think, as it happens. So it's really good that that's happening, and you will, of course, recall that that was in the Green Party's budget amendment in 23-24 for those two specific locations. So thank you very much for taking that up. Just want to know really from Councillor Hawkins about the public engagement, because we're sure that the public in both Armitage Bridge and Flockton will be really pleased to respond to those initiatives.
Yeah, it's not within highways. We're dealing with this process within the transport portfolio, so it's me, not Councillor Hawkins. So the sites that are being used as a demonstration as part of the application process will have a consultation process attached to them. You will get an email. I've already answered an earlier question to say you should get an explanation email. The sites have been selected on a technical basis by officers to give demonstration of how we would use the powers should the Department for Transport confer those powers on us. They are not necessarily sites that would be carried forward, nor is the application of powers restricted to those sites in the future. So we're not at the stage yet where we're looking at how to specifically use those powers more broadly across Kirklees, but we did need to get an application in, and that's why it's been, and the deadline for the application was quite short, and the DFT were not minded to extend the deadline. So it's important that we got the application in, and in due course, when sites are considered for permanent installations, there will be a proper consultation programme with councillors and with residents at that stage.
Supplementary, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, the sites were specifically mentioned in the press release, so expectations of those residents will be raised by this. So, yeah, obviously we're keen that the council does all it can to ensure that that they are able to follow through on action.
It's absolutely right that those sites have been named as sites for consultation as part of the application process, and that's why it will be particularly useful when we get the email out to all councillors to explain the application process so that they have a full understanding of what's going on there. I mean, the sites that you mentioned, I mean, you said they're part of a budget amendment in the past. The powers, it was only possible to try and take on the powers fairly recently through legislation change. I think this is possibly the second opportunity, so we've not been particularly lax, but I think now it is important that we take on those powers so that we can, as I say, confer the benefits that they allow us to confer on the residents of Kirklees, and also more broadly so that we're in line with our partners across West Yorkshire as we move towards things like bus franchising, which will bring additional benefit to a lot of our residents. It would be nice if we're able to enforce people misusing bus lanes, for example. But there are lots of opportunities for us to use these powers to benefit residents, and I look forward to us being able to do so, hopefully towards the end of this year, but dependent on external bodies to pass our application.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. That is the end of questions by elected members, but I know there are members here that wish to ask questions later on the agenda, so hopefully you'll be able to bring them up then. The next item on the agenda is item 8, appointment of cabinet and portfolios. I mean, this is just the notice that you've been given here for the new portfolios. The naming of the portfolios is meant to be simpler in terms of being able to identify which council or cabinet member you might wish to speak to, or the public might wish to speak to. I've recognised already that there's some confusion already between various cabinet members in this meeting. And just to explain a couple of those, yes, highways is separate to transport, and transport, that's two separate cabinet members, and the reason for that is that highways is the more local schemes and issues with regard to roads. Transport is the more major schemes and more strategic transport needs in the future. The other confusion that there may be is between waste and fly tipping. Waste, again, is the operational management of getting rid of our waste, and in particular, though, the waste strategy that is very much coming to the fore in the next 12 months or so, that we need to identify along with climate change. But the reason that fly tipping is with Councillor Pinnock is because I think we need an approach to fly tipping which recognises that our communities need to understand how to deal with their waste, how to deal with their waste properly, and what is the best way that they can use the facilities that are there available to them. And it's an education role more than anything, rather than us putting resources into wagons going around collecting fly tipping because we've actually identified this site as where you can fly tip your rubbish. No, we want people to dispose of their rubbish responsibly, and we recognise that that is a community's responsibility and an educational one at that. So that is why the split is there. I hope all the rest of the portfolios remain understandable to people. This is notification, so you don't really need to, the cabinet don't need to accept these, but they're here for notification, the official notification. So I will now go on to item 3. Councillor Kendrick? 9, sorry. I've lost it on my... oops. Thank you. Item 9, which is the proposed allocation of funding from the Children and Families Directorate Learning and Early Support Capital Plan. And Councillor Ryler will present this.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. And I'm pleased to introduce the following report. 2025 to 26 proposed allocation of funding from the Children and Families Directorate Learning and Early Support Capital Plan. The report identifies potential projects to be funded from the capital plan, and this funding will be used to address urgent condition-related needs in maintained schools. An update is provided on the investment of the first stage of the additionally resourced provisions and satellite provision. First introduced in 2023 with the aim to increase local sufficiency of SEND places linked to the Kirklees SEND transformation plan. Members will also be asked to consider and approve additionally resourced provisions and satellite programmes to be delivered in 2025 to 26. This enables further investments in the creation, expansion or enhancement of places for children with SEND. It is proposed that 5.3 million budget allocation for 25-26, which will include funding for urgent condition needs based projects, health and safety works, fire safety works, modular classroom replacements. Further to the schemes provided at June 2023, Cabinet, the following projects below have been undertaken. So the projects are at Netherhall Junior School, additionally resourced provision, up to 12 children with complex communication and interaction needs, and that was around 120,000. Woodley Moor Temporary Special School, satellite provision in Crossland Moor for up to 25 children, the cost 291k. And Old Bank Academy in Murfield, ARP for up to 16 children with cognition and learning needs. Operational from September 2023, estimated around 20k. And then coming to the present day, officers are currently working with schools to support the creation of additional SEND provision to be funded from the 25 to 26 budget. The New Mills Infant School, additionally resource provision for up to 9 children with complex communication and interaction needs, estimated cost 150,000. And New Mill Junior, additionally resourced provision for up to 9 children with complex communication and interaction needs, estimated costs 150,000. So the investment in provision for children with SEND will improve outcomes for children by providing access to high quality facilities to meet the special needs of children and young people, helping to ensure that they have the widest of opportunities, fulfilling aspirations and ambitions. And I recommend this report to councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryler. Councillor Kendrick, do you wish to second that?
Yes, I'm happy to second that and reserve the right. Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions from members? No? No. Kendrick? No. Okay, thank you. Can I see all those in favour then? Thank you. That's passed. We'll now move on to item 10, and Councillor Crook will be presenting this report.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with sight of the mandatory annual complaints performance and service improvement report for year 24-25, including the Council's self-assessment of our performance against the Housing Ombudsman's Complaint Handling Code. It seeks approval of this report prior to publication and submission to the Housing Ombudsman by the 30th of June 2025. Complaints are an opportunity for us to learn and improve as a service, so I very much welcome an open and transparent culture in this, allowing us to address issues as soon as possible and to keep our tenants safe. The complaints report here shows that we have seen a positive reduction in the overall number of what we call stage 1 complaints, and also an improvement in the proportion of these complaints being dealt with quickly. That's within the target time frame of 10 days. The report also shows that a slightly increased percentage of this reduced number of stage 1 complaints were escalated to a stage 2 complaint, and that we had a reduction in the percentage of these stage 2 complaints that were dealt with in the correct time frame. In terms of Ombudsman maladministration findings, we had a total of 21 decisions made and a slight reduction in the percentage which were found to constitute maladministration, so more positive news there. Overall, it's positive that the number of complaints has reduced in response to all of the transformational work that has been done to improve, and also to recognise the opportunity to learn so that complaints continue to support improvements to the service provided to tenants. I recommend we note this report, endorse the service response and annual report to be submitted to the Ombudsman, and approve the updated complaints handling and redress policy in line with recommendations.
Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Any comments? Councillor Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a few, but I'm happy to send some to you, Moses, as well. So my question is to Moses. While the report shows the rise in formal complaints, what it doesn't show is what we hear as councillors on the ground. Tenants are saying that housing officers are barely visible, estates are deteriorating, and there's a growing sense of abandonment. Now, in the report, the complaints are rising from 554 to 826 in a year, and the satisfaction is just 23%. Do you accept that there are as many tenants, especially on high-demand estates, and the system is no longer responsive for them, and it's not even barely functioning? Can the Cabinet member assure us that residents aren't going to be bypassed and their entire complaints process? In this report, I think it's lacking of what you're actually going to do to stop them feeling ignored.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I mean, I would like to reassure you, and I'd like to reassure tenants, that tenants are absolutely at the heart of everything that we do as a housing service. We have put in a phenomenal effort. I think, you know, I would like to thank officers for the effort they have put in to transform the services that we provide to tenants. A really important part of that is having clear communication with tenants so that they understand both what we can do as a landlord service and what we can't do. In the current context where we have an acute national housing crisis, there is always going to be some tension and some difficulty in providing housing for people, and there is less choice in how we, where we place people once we have found a home for them. So this kind of residualisation of stock does lead to some community tensions which do feed through in the tenant satisfaction measures as you've identified. I think that it is incredibly important that we mend that relationship so that we communicate clearly with tenants and so that they feel that they have an avenue for communicating back with us. A lot of the work we're doing is to do with compliance with the Regulator of Social Housing Consumer Standards to ensure that our stock of housing is safe and warm and secure. That work doesn't necessarily translate into appearance of a good service response to the tenants, and that's a piece of work that is well underway from the service because, as I say, that is critically important. Listening to the voice of tenants is also critically important. So we have representation from the tenant-led panel on the Homes and Neighbourhoods Improvement Board, which is an avenue whereby frustrations can be fed back to the service. I attend voluntarily that board as well to give me that extra assurance that we are listening to tenants in that context. So I recognise absolutely that there are failings in the service, and I think, you know, notwithstanding the extant notice from the regulator to improve from the Regulator of Social Housing, there are other areas where it is critical that we do improve. But I would just like to reassure you that we are aware of that and we are working really hard to improve. There is some positive news in this report as well in the reduction of first stage complaints, but clearly work to do. Yeah.
Supplementary, Councillor Scott.
Okay, some of that was answered for me, Moses, and there is some really, really good things in that report which are very satisfactory. But one of the areas I did want to highlight that there was 60% of complaints were upheld at stage 2, meaning that the council got it wrong the first time. So we're spending over 300,000 that's been spent on managing complaints, and that was last year. Wouldn't it be more cost effective to redirect some of that spend to frontline presence and proactive maintenance? And it's just a thought that I want to leave you with it today. You know, maybe that is the way to go.
Thanks. I don't really want to get too much into analysing the numbers. Obviously, we've had a slight decrease in the percentage of stage 2 complaints that have been processed in the time frame, but that's of a smaller number because we had a smaller number of stage 1 complaints. So even though a higher percentage of those were escalated, it was a smaller number of complaints. So it all gets a little bit hard to follow through. The underlying message is I absolutely recognise that having complaints upheld is not where we want to be. Actually, if we had a high number of complaints and none of them were upheld, I think that would still identify there was a problem because it would be a problem of communication, which I think is at the heart of the relationship that I was talking about with our tenants. If tenants don't feel there is a legitimate redress for perceived problems or don't understand which problems are within our gift as a landlord to fulfil, then there will be a higher number of complaints. So I think overall the reduction in the initial complaints being received is a positive message. We would expect, as we work through these service improvements around things like damp, mould and condensation, that there will be a high number of complaints around that sort of service failure until we get on top of it. There's been, just continuing on in that service area, there's been an enormous amount of work put in, and we are seeing numbers fall now. And regularly, obviously, we're meeting with the regulator to give them assurance that the service is meeting that demand. And I think it's particularly important in terms of that particular area that we do meet that demand and get to a business as usual position ahead of Awad's law that will come into effect later this year, which will impose greater responsiveness on registered providers, including council landlords, to respond to that type of complaint. But overall, any complaint is a service failure from my perspective. We need to get to a place where there's open communication between the housing management officers and the tenants in their patch, and we are going back to a patch-based approach so that there can be personal relationships built up. But I want there to be that feeling that you can raise concerns and then have those concerns meaningfully answered so we don't get to the complaint stage. It's a work in progress, but thank you for the opportunity to talk about it a bit.
Any further questions, comments from members? No? Okay. Well, can I see those in favour of those recommendations, please? Thank you. That's carried. Now on to item 11, I believe.
Yep.
Sorry. I'm trying to be paperless. Jumping around. As this would be Councillor Turner's item, but as he is on leave, then Councillor Crook will be taking this and presenting it on his behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So this item refers to the estate buildings, residential development update and delivery approach. This paper outlines a positive proposal to move further towards bringing this Grade 2-star listed estate building in Huddersfield back into service for residents and a strategy for overcoming the remaining obstacles for redevelopment. This proposal supports our wider blueprint regeneration aims to bring more people into the regenerated town centre, linking into both the station to stadium corridor investments and the new and upgraded transport links being close to the bus and train stations, and to deliver good quality housing within the town to support this. Various external and internal funds have been put to good use over a period of time to keep the building safe, watertight and investment ready, and to invest in enabling works to close the viability gap that has been preventing the development and recommission of the buildings to benefit Kirklees to date. This work has meant that a proposal to bring this site to market will now be positively received and result in a partnership being formed with the private sector to return the building to use. I recommend that we vote to accept the recommendations as stated in the papers today and as the option at 6.1 Part 2, and also to thank officers for all of the work that has gone into moving this project closer to delivery over a number of years.
Is that seconded by? Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Questions? Councillor Scott, you have a question?
It's just a comment because I think Moses has just covered most of it. Will Cabinet undertake to publish the names and the selection process for the delivery of the milestones with a new development partner? I think it's a significant thing that's happened today regarding this building, and you've brought it as an update and things that are happening, and I think that the general public would be interested in knowing, particularly councillors even, if you brief us.
Thank you, Cathy. I mean, my general position is that councillors should be informed of everything that's going on, and when we have a policy announcement in my portfolio areas, notwithstanding the recent failure to get in touch with all councillors ahead of the submission because of the short time frames on moving vehicle traffic violations, I would normally expect that councillors would be informed of all of the detail that wasn't commercially sensitive or needed to remain private for other reasons. When we get to delivery of the estates building project and enter into a partnership, I hope that any information that is, as I say, not commercially sensitive or restricted will be shared first with councillors and then with the general public as well. That's the way round I think it should be done in a short time frame.
Supplementary? Are there any other questions or comments on this item? No? Well, it's been moved and seconded. Can I see those in favour, please? Thank you. Right, now, item 12, we have got, there are some private papers with this particular item. Can I see from members of the Cabinet whether or not you had read those items, and do we need to go into private session to discuss that at all or not? No? Okay, thank you. Well, again, this would have been Councillor Turner's portfolio, but Councillor Crook is going to present this on his behalf.
Thank you, Leader. So item 12, this is the Kingsgate Property Investment Fund loan extension. Just to introduce it very briefly, this report requests a one-year extension of the previously approved Property Investment Fund loan, which was provided to support development of the Kingsgate Centre in line with our regeneration ambitions for Huddersfield, and extending the loan period until July 2026. The existing loan is secured against the property, and so any risk to the council is mitigated and remains extremely low. I propose that we approve this proposal in line with recommendations as stated in the papers.
I will second this one. Are there any questions? Cathy Scott?
Well, thank you, Chair. My question is how can this Cabinet justify extending a private loan for a cinema or hotel while cutting sports centres, closing toilets, reducing neighbourhood services? And I know Councillor Turner isn't here, but Councillor Crook.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. The way that the council uses money for the benefit of residents in general is many and varied. I don't think you can relate to unrelated aspects of the council's operation in that way. I think we've identified through your questions and through the paper that there is a broader interest in maintaining the viability and the development of the Kingsgate Centre. It supports our regeneration agenda in Huddersfield, and the investment that's gone into that centre is by and large from the private sector. The council have facilitated that investment through a loan which we will get back. So this isn't this is just temporary use of public money to facilitate much greater investment from the private sector for all of our benefit. I won't say anything else about the sports centre. Thanks.
Supplementary?
The scheme changed and the hotel wasn't on the original plans, which it's stating now. How exactly does that serve the public priorities? And how are you going to cater for the competition for your George Hotel, where you also supplemented monies?
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I mean, I think that it is well established that there is a deficit in terms of hotel availability in Huddersfield, and actually it is really important that we do support private investment to bring hotels to market so that we can provide accommodation for people wishing to visit the town. I see that very much in the public interests and in the broader interests of the council, because it, as I say, will support our regeneration agenda, support the town growing and being more prosperous, which benefits everyone in Kirklees.
Yeah, certainly. I would just add that, yes, the bed spaces certainly are lacking, and we constantly hear from the private sector, from the university, from other businesses, that they're unable to hold an event, expand or whatever because of the lack of accommodation. And if they have visitors to Kirklees or to Huddersfield, then they need to put them up in Leeds. So I was just adding that. Okay, thank you. You have another question, Councillor Scott.
Just a quick one. The council assumed its budget this year on monies to be repaid by 2025. It's now getting pushed to 2026. What impact will this have on projects and services again? Will this create a gap in the capital fund programme?
Thank you, Councillor Scott. We'll have to check the detail and get back to you, but my understanding is that the Property Investment Fund was set up and ring-fenced quite some years ago, so I am not all over that because I'm not the finance portfolio holder, but I expect that that was a ring-fenced piece of funding and so hasn't had any implication for this year's budget and the ability of the council to deliver the services and provision that we've committed to do.
Any further questions?
Just a supplementary, it was just the budget was based on the repay back. There's no repay back at this moment. You're extending, so you're putting a risk factor there. It's just a comment, Moses, but I do know that you will come back.
Yeah, I mean, just to repeat what I said before, I think that repayment would then be into a fund that was set up and ring-fenced for investment purposes to provide loans to facilitate further investment through the private sector. But I don't want to be held to that because it's not my portfolio area. So I will get Graham to get back to you with some detail there.
Okay, if there's no further questions on that item, it has been moved and seconded. Can I see all those in favour, please? Thank you. Right, thank you very much. That is the end of the meeting. Thank you.